All right, guys. Excited to be here. We have a really nice showing of communities today. We're really excited. There are some projects that, as many projects as we work every year, there's some that just really stand out and we have a lot of fun with. And our project today is one of those projects that we not only are excited about what they're going to do in terms of their job creation and expansion, but just a pleasure to work with someone that's been able to communicate with us and give us the information we need so that we can help shorten their site location process and get them in front of some communities that A, they may have not ever considered before, and B, ones they're considering and need final information to really make the right choice for their expansion. Today's goals, we're going to kind of just do a quick meet of our team and who we are. We're going to do an overview, quick overview of the project, which includes how we met the project and got in touch with it, help you guys kind of determine the different methods that you can employ in your own marketing aspects of how you're doing business attraction. Then we're going to bring our guest online and we're going to actually just do a Q&A. We're going to talk about the project. We've prepared and been sent questions to kind of warm up the discussion and learn about the project. And then we open up the opportunity for you to filter in any questions you have. And we've got a specific format we'll go over so that we can make sure that you get a little plug for your community and the project knows that you are very interested in talking with them and getting, hopefully earning their business. Who's on the call? That's always a good question. We have our elite cities. Those are community clients that we've been working with. We have an innate relationship with them, understanding about their communities, what their communities can offer, so that when we're talking with projects like the one today, we know that there's a good match and that we can start early engagement with them on their projects. We also have some trial communities. We've had several communities that aren't a part of our elite cities network that have been considering looking at employing us and bringing us into their business attraction network and creating a partnership with us. We'd love to have you. We enjoy having you here and hope this is a good opportunity for you to learn the transparency that we bring to our projects. And then we have some observing companies. We've invited some companies that we are talking to that are considering using GSLI's Elite Cities Network and methods in helping them locate their sites. And welcome, and we enjoy having you. And then we just have communities that are not in the short list, and they really just want to kind of hear from projects and understand what is that motivates them and helps them understand what they go through in making a decision and finding the right site so they can apply it to their own companies within their communities or even other projects that they're working with. Some housekeeping items, always ask questions in the Q&A section. There's a little Q&A button down at the bottom. I always, and I'm going to continue to remind people, put your first name, your city, and then put your question. That way I know exactly who we're talking to. The company knows who that they're talking with and gives them a visual of where they're communicating throughout the country, because we have people from all over the country here today. We are recording and transcribing this. It goes on to our website. You'll get alerted so that if you are preparing your submission and you need to go back and listen to a few key items to clean up your submission, you can do so. And if you ever have a complicated question, I might ask you to raise your hand, or if you really want to come on mic, you can raise your hand. I'll open up your mic and bring you live and let you talk directly with us. Who's with us today? It's myself, Eric Kleinsorge. I'm the CEO and chairman of Global Site Location Industries. Been doing this for 30 years and have never gotten tired of helping communities create jobs. It's something that I'm really motivated by, and I try to train our team. That's what it's all about. If we can help create one new job, that person is making a positive impact in our economy, and we're more than glad to help companies like Sam, who's our guest today, make those locations and create positive job impact. Ashley Kleinsorge, my daughter, she's been with us over 3 years. I think we're coming up on 4 years. She is in the trenches. She's communicating, gathering information. She is the responsible party that gets all of the data back from the communities, organizes it, and puts it back to the projects themselves, with help from our community assessment directors who are interfacing with the communities. And we've got Sam. He is the president and CEO of Project Bluetooth. And if you see the funny hat on him, you'll understand a little bit about the story. You never know when you're at a trade show who's the right person to talk to. And Sam's a classic example of the typical CEOs that we run into. We're in the business of job creation. We both, we're a consulting firm, and we help both the communities and the companies in their searches, and help bridge that gap between the two. We've got an exclusive network of members that are communities that use us, and we build relationships with to learn about their communities and help put them in front of projects that they probably would have never had the opportunity to meet, or the company would have never had the opportunity to learn about, because they just didn't know about what was going on in those individual communities. Those communities that are in our elite network, they get to work unlimited projects, and we just require that there's a good fit between what they can offer and the companies are seeking. And at non-member communities, if you're one of those just kind of observing day, we welcome your submissions. We allow one free site proposal per submission per 12-month period to really get an understanding of the process that we go through and the extent that we go through to help you land projects. We currently have 127 active projects, so that'll give you an idea of how busy Ashley is in terms of coordinating that data and getting it over to the companies. All of those projects are at GSLIprojectportal.com. Anyone can go in there, create an account, and go view all of the different projects that we have. There's notes and there's information and statistics on those projects to help you determine if there's a good match. And communities interested, as I just said, can log in as a guest and take a look at those projects. Last year, this helps our projects earn our confidence in that we're going to help them. Last year, we landed 67 of our projects. This is just a small sampling of those projects. We air it out. We let them know exactly, and we celebrate. Once we land a project, we put the trophy on their project, and we let everyone know, take it out of their system for that particular project. But many projects we help multiple times, so in multiple expansions. We want to do them a good job on project one so that they come back to us again and again for future projects. Real quick, I want to throw up a poll. We've got a lot of people in attendance here, and I met a ton of people out at DC at the Select USA. It was a phenomenal event. How many people here attended the Select USA event, whether or not you exhibited or attended? There's a poll that should be up now. If you could just pop it in there. And also, while you're filling that first question out, Going Global, that is a event that we're heavily involved with. We did it last year. So imagine the Select USA, and that's why I'm asking that question. There was about 1,500 companies there that were seeking opportunities around the US. And the Going Global, we're anticipating over 6,000 companies to be in attendance there looking at doing opportunities abroad. They're not all going to be in the US, some European countries, but mostly what we have found is they're going to be looking at the US. We are doing a major sponsorship with that show. We have a booth at that show, and they've encouraged us and want us to see and discuss any interest in a USA pavilion. This would not be appropriate, I don't feel, for individual cities, but regional groups and state groups. The price is right in terms of what they're doing to make that pavilion happen, because they think it would be a great opportunity for those companies to seek out and discuss, but it would be a massive lead generator like the Select USA. So if you click you'd like information, we'll be more than glad to forward you any information on the show and their website so that you can become familiar with it. All right. Project Insight. Typically this is where Ashley talks and speaks about how she got in touch with the project through one of her 5 pillars. This was actually Caresta and I. We were at the ProMat show, and as we were engaging and talking with companies that were walking around, we found Sam, and we started talking to Sam. We took him through the questionnaire. He was not you wouldn't just pick him out and say, hey, you're this massive CEO of a company, of this massive company. And that's what we find. We find that the CEOs and really the important people are kind of just there to observe, to learn, to see what competitors are doing. In Sam's case, I'm just guessing, may have been there searching for some products for this expansion. But it was a great opportunity. Sam spent time with us at the show, gave us a lot of great details, which really paved the way for us to re-engage and spend time with him via Zoom calls to gather the additional information that we needed to put together the project profile and provide you, the cities, enough information to say, hey, this is a good match for us, or eliminate yourself from consideration. Say it's not a good match on this particular project, but if you're expanding in 5 years from now or 3 years from now, or whatever the demand leans to, we're here for you. Ashley, if you take this over, kind of talk about some of Sam's needs in his project.
Yeah, so some high-level factors that are important to know about his project, one being the facility size. So think lower ceiling height, he's going to need a larger building. Higher ceiling height, he'll need a smaller building. So 150,000 to 275,000 would be around this 36-foot ceiling height. And then 225 to 350,000 would be around 24-foot ceiling heights. So either could work, but it definitely depends a lot on the ceiling height. And then time frame, he wants to do this as quickly as possible, hopefully within the next 6 months. It's kind of a shorter timeline than we do with a lot of other projects. So if this does seem like a good fit, definitely jump on it. And we'll be creating 25 jobs by year 1, and then by year 5, up to 80 jobs. Kind of depends on a lot of different factors, but right now that's what we're expecting to create within the facility. And then he does prefer to purchase the building rather than lease. And locations of interest, he'll go into this a bit more later on, because he does have 2 ports that he believes would be a good fit. But it is up to you guys. If you have a port nearby that you believe is a better fit, then he's going to want to know why and receive that data. But within 2 hours of a south or southeast port is most important.
Yeah, and some on that, I'm really interested in seeing how some of these inland ports with either trucking or rail, how those might apply to Sam's business and maybe even help cost. And I drew this map earlier and shared it with Sam this morning. And Sam, this might be a good opportunity for you to come on board and come online. But this here, right around in this region up here, is kind of I always call it initial areas of interest. It's what they've kind of looked at and what they've got kind of planted in their mind as a sweet spot to look in. And then these other opportunities are opportunities that they really haven't quite dove in and done the comparisons to see how the costs would affect their business. But Sam, you kind of brought up right before this the importance of the inbound as it relates to the outbound. Could you kind of go into that a little deeper?
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everybody. I'm Sam. Pleasure to formally meet everybody. In terms of the location as it relates to inbound, I would say more than 90% of the merchandise for this facility would be arriving via ocean freight container, importing from either China or some other countries. Right now, it's mostly China, We are in the process of opening up factories in other parts of the world as well as we speak. But the goods come in via port, via vessel, and from the port, the 40-foot ocean freight container has to get put onto a chassis, so a truck, and the truck basically has to do the drayage, which is bring it to your warehouse location. We found during COVID time, when things were really busy and logistics was backed up, that anybody who didn't have facilities nearby the ports, or didn't have good port access, very much took a back seat to getting their merchandise. During times where you have less congestion, maybe it's not as critical, but it really is a big cost, both in time, cash flow, and cost of actually getting the goods to the warehouse, which is kind of the first leg of the journey before the product gets stocked and sold. So we are looking to have a strategic logistics location that will allow us within a reasonable amount of time to easily, efficiently, and costly, or not too costly, I should say, get the goods to the warehouse.
Perfect. So that we're going to go straight into Q&A. I want to do a quick review. As we're going through, we've got 10 questions that we prepared and have been submitted that'll get us kind of started. If you have your own personal question as it relates to any of these topics, put them in the Q&A box down the bottom. This is what it looks like. Click on it. Again, put your first name, put your location, give yourself a little plug, not a real plug, just so that we know where you're talking from, and ask your question, and we'll answer every question that's asked, and hopefully the questions we've prepared will take care of a lot of that for you. So Sam, welcome. I'm really excited. There hasn't been a conversation that we haven't had that I've just had a blast with, and I'm looking forward to doing a little scotch and cigars with you. So excited about that.
Well,
and I'd love to come out and visit your facility and see. It's really a really cool facility, and looking forward to helping you on this. But tell us a little bit about your business and really what's your main reason for expansion.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Eric, for having me. So we are predominantly a manufacturer and importer of audio equipment and lighting. And when I say audio, we actually play in virtually every audio category. So starting off from Bluetooth speakers to professional speakers, recording studio speakers, restaurant 70-volt style speakers, car speakers, marine for boat, ATV, off-road, motorcycle. We kind of run the gamut as far as that's concerned. Speakers, amplifiers, and pretty much all the apparatuses in between that make the sound. We also have a very large and fast-growing lighting business, which is stage lighting, DJ lighting, stage lighting, and effects. Kind of like the type of different color lights that you'll see at events. You'll see them at parties. You'll see them maybe in nightclubs. You'll see them at corporate events. You'll even see them sometimes lighting up houses. A reason for expansion is, we've just kind of been on the grind for, say, a good 20 years. Year over year, we've had tremendous growth virtually every year, with the exception of 1 year that we went flat, which was during a time where we had to move warehouses. But even that year was still a decent year. And we're just continuing to build. We continuously launch new products. Our brand has really gained a lot of traction, both in the industry, in the professional industry, as well as also in consumer industry. Professional industry would be more along the lines of people who use audio equipment as tools for their job. Could be somebody who's doing podcasts, could be DJs, it could be recording studios, it could be bands, it could be restaurants, and then consumer would be more the style of like people who are just kind of buying things for their houses. More along the lines of, let's say, Bluetooth speakers or like kind of party speakers with some lights on it. So we're continuously making more products. We pride ourselves in offering value. We don't ship junk. We make high quality product, but our price points, if you check out our website, I'm not sure if Eric, I'm not supposed to plug the website, right? I won't do it. Okay. But basically, sorry, I wasn't trying to plug. But basically, we're a value brand. We sell high quality products at very reasonable prices. We offer exceptional service. We currently have 2 warehouses in the West Coast in California, 1 in New York. All of them are overflowing with merchandise and orders, and logistics is a very big part of our business. Some of the products are actually pretty big, like think like a speaker, for like a band. They're big speakers. So some of the products, not everything is that size. We have like a big variety, but some of the products are going to take up a lot of space. So we do need a decent amount of warehouse space. We also have a lot of products, and we hold a ton of inventory. We currently have offices in China as well, in Ningbo. We're in the process of opening up another office in Shenzhen as we speak. And we're based out of, our corporate is based out of New York.
Yeah, that's one reason I really love my job, Sam. I get to actually dive in and talk with the CEOs and learn about their business and learn about what makes them tick. And in our conversation yesterday, you really brought up something that I never thought of in terms of your facility, and actually how it relates to a community. And with workforce being in such, I'm not going to say shortage, but workforce being a demand on not just, cities everywhere. And you found it up in New York also. But you talked about the ramp up period and how you actually have to scale a warehouse. So question number 2 is about describe the facility you're in. I know you're maxed out, but I'd like you to kind of go into how that growth and that expansion happens, because I really do think it leads into a community being able to provide you a workforce and then grow that workforce into additional people.
Yeah, Eric, that's actually an excellent point and a good question. Yeah, we have experience in opening up and starting up new warehouses. At some point, every warehouse we're in now was empty, and had many of them didn't even have proper construction elements, let alone fixtures and racking and security systems to get going. So typically speaking, figure any logistics facility that's let's say over 100,000 square feet, or pretty much any size. You can't sell goods that you don't have in stock in my line of business. So you can't really have outgoing labor and outgoing production if you don't have inventory in stock. Yeah, there is such a thing called cross-stocking or just-in-time inventory, but the reality is, in our line of business, with what we do with the manufacturing end, we do need to stock inventory. So let's say go live date in, let's say, 200,000 square foot warehouse. So what's going to start to happen is the heavy load in the first 6 months is going to be on the receiving end and less on the shipping end, because what starts to happen is as the more merchandise comes in, you're going to get more orders. So for example, let's say the first week that it opens up, you might get 5 or 10 ocean freight containers coming in. And now we can only send orders to those warehouses for those merchandise, those SKUs, those model numbers that are actually in the warehouse. And then let's say within the next month or 2, you're going to continue to get more and more products in stock, and your variety of product from your line is going to increase as per the in-stock availability from that warehouse. At that point, you start giving more orders to that warehouse. It's not like you're going to take a 200,000 square foot warehouse or a 300,000 square foot warehouse on day 1 and fill the whole thing up. It's a scale up time where you're going to start heavy on receiving and less on the outgoing. And eventually you get to a point of equilibrium where you hope that as you deplete goods, as you ship them outgoing, more goods come in, and you're hoping that your logistics and your purchasing teams are on top of that, and are making sure that you have the stock at the location where you need it and when you need it.
I'd like to ask this question personally, because I think that would help some of our communities that have these types of companies also locally. Is there a decision point, like once a warehouse starts getting to that equilibrium, like 75% or 90% or whatever, is that kind of the time you start going, oh, we better project 2 years from now, we're going to have to open up another facility? Or is it that scientific?
Well, I wish I could say it's that scientific. There's definitely science behind it, but one of my favorite lines is from Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. I mean, not everybody likes Mike Tyson, but he's actually a pretty smart guy if you actually don't pay as much attention to his squeaky voice and listen to what he has to say. He's got some good experience anyway. So definitely this planning, obviously, you start to look, you got a model, you start to look at incoming, you start to look at your growth, you start to looking at how much inventory you need to hold, to sell. Like if I want to double my sales, typically speaking, I may not have to double my inventory, but I'm definitely going to have to increase my inventory somewhat. It all depends on how fast things are moving, how many days of inventory you need to stock. There's a lot of different variables that you're held to, where you don't have full control over every one of them. So you get to a point where either A, something existing for whatever reason is inefficient and not working well, which kind of tells you need to kind of switch directions, or B, even if everything is working well, things start to get maxed out. And at that point, you need growth. In terms of equilibrium point, it really happens when you have the lion's share of your inventory and your hottest selling products in stock in that warehouse. Now, in terms of when is that going to happen? Well, what starts to happen is in a company like ours who runs multiple warehouse buildings, typically speaking, you're going to have like right now, for example, I have some products in California and New York. I have some products that are only in California, not New York. I have some products that are in New York and not in California. Okay. In a perfect world, you'd like to have your hottest products in all your logistics locations for fastest shipping, cheapest shipping costs, and fastest shipping to your end user customer. Whereas if I got a West Coast customer, I could ship it from the West. If I got a middle of the country or southern customer, I typically ship it from wherever this new location is. In fact, this new location that we're looking for, we're hoping to be able to fill 60 to 75% of all of our orders from. We're hoping for this to be a larger location, which is why we're kind of being a little bit more strategic about where to put it. But to answer your question, Eric, the basic thing is, when the warehouse has the lion's share of the inventory in stock, that does take time, because you're not going to be transferring all your goods from one warehouse to another. It's too expensive. Every time you touch a product, it costs you money. So what you try to do is you try to receive the new inventory in the new warehouse as soon as it's open. You try to focus in on getting the right products in there as much as possible. You try to, in the early days, prioritize them on outgoing orders to make sure that you keep your people busy. And when eventually the inventory arrives, could take 6 months, a year even, to get everything in there. At that point, you're going to be kicking into high gear.
Yeah, and I think that plays right into what you said earlier of trying to provide a high-end product at a reasonable price. Anytime a location, whoever drives up that cost, it's going to have to be passed along to the customer. So being able to present those facts and that information of how you can keep costs down as a community for his project would actually play into your whole business model, correct?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that we're very proud of is our ability to service everybody. You have we could argue our biggest competitor might be a company like JBL, but are they really a competitor? Well, they are in some sense. They're definitely an inspiration for us, but there's a lot of people who aren't going to want to pay $200 for a small little Bluetooth speaker. They want to pay $40, $50. And those people who pay $40 to $50, $30 just because they spent less money, that doesn't mean they want a piece of junk. So you know, we kind of fit that model, that our high-end stuff, even our high-end stuff, like our more pro stuff, is well priced for the pro, and our more entry-level stuff is not junk, and it's also priced properly for people who just want a good bang for the buck. You know, and what happens is when you start looking at your logistics, everything involved with it, from your labor to your facility, to the rent that you pay, the storage, the costs that you pay, the financing you got to pay sometimes to finance inventory, you start to realize that all of these things put together kind of contribute to your cost of goods. And when they start to contribute to your cost of goods, you start to realize that if you're not careful about how you handle all this overhead, you're not even capable of competing in that game. And when you are, you now technically could have a competitive advantage over other people, which is kind of what we're after.
Perfect. Now 3 and 4, we can kind of bundle together, because you kind of shared with me the type of building, like it doesn't need to be a super class A space in terms of your needs. But kind of talk about the type of building that's a good fit, and if there's any special needs that you have to have in terms of dock doors, electrical, column widths, those types of things.
Yeah, sure. So predominantly, we're kind of an interesting company, because, you know, sometimes when you classify a warehouse, you know, different classifications, industrial, distribution, warehousing, e-commerce, storage, manufacturing, you know, for us, I would say we're not really manufacturing in the US. We do R&D in the US, we do engineering, but we don't really do much manufacturing. So we're not a manufacturing company, though there are some manufacturing warehouses that, if the ceiling height is above 20 feet, can be retrofitted for our type of operation. We have done that before, years past. So that is a possibility, but the ceiling height would have to be a minimum of 20 feet to even be reasonable, because we do have a decent amount of storage needs, more than we have in terms of production needs. So we're definitely a distribution company, because we supply to Amazon, we supply to Walmart, we supply the big boxes. And we're also definitely an e-commerce company, which is each's picks, which means with direct to consumer, where we're actually going to be shipping products directly, packaging up, putting the label on, going right to your house, right to your door. So I would say the type of building would be more along the lines of what people call distribution, or a manufacturing that has decent ceiling height that could be converted to it. You know, Ashley mentioned earlier, in terms of the type of building or ceiling heights, you know, we're really more looking at like a value play over here. Obviously we have different fundamentals that are necessary, but you know, typically the newer buildings are usually 32 to 36 foot. I've seen them as high as 40, which would work, but I would not call that a requirement. My current California buildings, those were operating out of 3PLs, are kind of more like the new modern day 36-foot ceiling. My New York building is about a 23-foot ceiling, which has really been more of a manufacturing facility that we've been able to retrofit years back and kind of really maximize the size. What's really important is that there's a decent amount of cubic volume of storage in the building in totality. So that's the reason why, when you're looking at cubic volume rather than just square footage, you know, you start to realize that if you got a 36-foot ceiling compared to a 24-foot ceiling, well, you could put in a 20 or 24-foot, you know, ceiling warehouse, you're going to need more square footage to accommodate the same amount of inventory as you might need in a 36-footer. There's a lot of other considerations in terms of equipment, that when you go into 36-foot, there's some different equipments that you need, the racking heights and different type of forklifts. You know, I'm familiar with you know, most of the above, but basically a distribution building, column spacing, from my experience, I would probably say the minimum, you know, I know the new buildings are typically like 60 by 60, which is great. I wouldn't say it's necessary. I would say minimum would probably be minimum 25 to 30 by 25 to 30, 25 by 25 to 30 by 30. If you have 30 by 40 could work, 40 by 40 could work, 40 by 50 could work. Because really you could just do a racking design around that. In terms of dock doors, we do need a decent amount of loading. So I would say that depending on the square footage of the building we end up with, the larger building, if we end up with a larger building, that's going to assume we're going to be able to fit a larger amount of inventory in it. We'll probably need a few extra dock doors. If we go on the smaller side of the scale that Ashley represented earlier, maybe a few less, but I would say minimum 10 dock doors, probably 10 to 20 would probably be about right. Even if the building didn't have dock doors, if it at least had a place that you could cut dock doors into it, that's fine as well. As long as it's got a parking lot that a truck or land area that a truck can actually back into it. The type of things that are coming in, they're going to be, like I said, 40-foot. We're also going to get some 53-foot tractor trailers for domestic stuff, but most of the goods coming in are going to come in 40-foot containers, ocean freight, right from the port. Backed right into those dock doors.
Perfect. So this next question, we talked and we tapped into a little bit about your inbound logistics. And one of the things you shared was you also have to get that product to high-end users. People that use your product. Talk about what's the important thing. You've kind of shared with me how the population really follows the trend of where you look. So access to population is a key, but getting that out to that population, what's your primary method? Is it purely via truck? Do you employ rail? What are some of the ways that you get your product out to market?
Well, at the present moment, the primary way that products are going out to market is via what's called small parcel. Small parcel is, as you'll be familiar with, would be FedEx, UPS, potentially the post office, potentially Amazon. Amazon nowadays, for people probably realize, has their own small parcel service, even not just for the Amazon customers. They're a competitor now of UPS and FedEx in that area as well. I would say that's the dominant area because that's kind of like the direct to consumer area, which I would say is the largest part of the business. But when we're shipping to through distribution to places like Walmart, to Amazon. So for example, Amazon sometimes will send their own trucks that we would load up for them, like in bulk on pallets, kind of bulk distribution. Also, they'll also schedule third-party trucks to come. So those type of trucks for outgoing would be pallets. I would say, I don't know offhand the exact percentages, and over time these could shift a little bit, but I would say the lion's share of it would be going small parcel. So for example, typically speaking, if we're currently doing business with, let's say, FedEx, there would be 2 or 3 FedEx trailers backed into the outgoing shipping loading docks, which over the course of the day would get loaded, completed. If we needed more trailers, somebody would call the terminal manager to bring another truck. And then at the end of the day, that truck gets closed, gets pulled, and the empty gets dropped for the next morning in all those docks, whether it's FedEx or UPS. That would be the primary outgoing. In terms of where the product is going to, what I was telling Eric when we spoke earlier was that our customers are generally based all over the country. We ship everywhere. And in terms of who are the largest customers, for the most part, there are some anomalies categorically where things might change based off a climate or based off a lifestyle that might be different in certain geographic locations. Like for example, marine and things for boats, which is one of our categories, might be more popular in places that have more people with boats. Places like Florida, places that are on the water, California, even obviously there's many other states as well. So those might get heavier spikes from other states that don't have the same weather. Maybe summertime, like summertime, summertime guys from New York have their boats in the water, but wintertime, nobody from New York is buying speakers for their boat. So that would be kind of like anomaly categories, but generally speaking, audio is popular throughout the entire year, very, very heavy during the holiday season. We see huge spikes. And in terms of where the product goes, it, for the most part, with maybe a slight variation, but for the most part follows the general population curve of the United States. So a state that's more populated, say like the big four, California, New York, Texas, and Florida, as they're the most populated states, are going to get more orders than, you know, some of the smaller states that have less. But with that said, that doesn't make a smaller state that's in a great geographic location for receiving goods and could still get the goods out to those other states within 2 days less appealing for us. That's just fine. You know, as a big part of it is, you know, you got to be able to receive it within reason, and you got to be able to reach those people within reason. So yeah. Hope I answered your
That kind of plays into secondary logistics. This is more probably on the inbound, but Eric Wiggins, thank you for your question. Eric's from Kilgore, and that's in Texas. And he asked, what's the minimum draft depth that's needed with your port? Do you have any data on, you know, what type of ship you can you bring your product in on?
The answer is the company has the data. I don't have it offhand. It could be. I have heard about it before. I'd have to speak to my lead guy who handles this. But I am familiar that there are different size vessels that will ship, and I would say, you know, we receive a lot of containers, a lot. You know, we could get over 1,000 in a year. You know, you could get 3, 4, 5 a day. You know, on some days. So yes, that is a consideration. A smaller port, you know, if it has limitations as to which vessel it could ship on, could be a little bit of a limitation. It doesn't mean that a port like that couldn't be used as a secondary port. But if that was the only way to get goods in, that could cause a little bit of a bottleneck down the road.
That brings up another interesting point I want to ask, because I've worked on some projects where the truck load that they had really limited some of the options within the city because of what they could do with the roads and the road system. Give me an idea of how many trucks you foresee coming in and out of this facility on a daily basis.
Not a ton,
Okay.
not as many as you would think. It's more the trucks that come in and out are going to be more full trucks, as opposed to, you know, very often when you're dealing in, you know, because I deal in my New York facility, we deal not just with a Rockville brand, we also deal distribution, and we receive we receive more. Many, besides for the ocean freight, we also receive a decent amount of let's just call them LTL, as they call it, less than truckload, which is basically like comes on a couple of pallets or shrink wrapped. Could be anywhere between 1 and 10 pallets, 20 pallets even shrink wrap. Well, 20 pallets would probably be a full truckload, but somewhere between that. In those scenarios, you're receiving and shipping a lot of outgoing like that, you're going to have a lot more, let's call it truck traffic. In our scenario, like a FedEx truck is going to have very little traffic, or UPS truck, because it's basically going to be dumped empty the night before, and it's going to be just one pickup, and then it's gone. So you don't have a lot of back and forth on that. It's really you're shipping like a very heavy amount of density. An ocean freight container similarly comes loaded 40 foot top to bottom, you know, literally like sardines, and you know, every cubic inch is used up. So you're getting like a real kind of like very good, let's call it cubic usage of the containers that are coming in. So in terms of the overall volume going in and out, I would say is a lot. I mean, there's definitely a lot of trucks, but if I had more of like the other type of operation, instead of telling you I need 10 or 20 docks, I'd probably need closer to 50, 60 docks, which I don't need. So that'll tell you a little bit about the in and out. There will be in and out. There will definitely be traffic, but it's not going to be, it shouldn't be super congested.
Okay, perfect. I've got two questions here that actually combine, circling back to buildings. We've got Rick Clifton, he's from Covington County, one of our elite cities, and John Purick from Ballinger in Texas. In fact, I was just in Ballinger and Coleman yesterday and enjoyed some visits and touring of some sites there. They were asking, and I know of your short time frame, if the right opportunity in the community were able to present a case on build to suit, is that an option? Or you two, you got to make like maybe a potential build to suit, build smaller, grow as the facility grows, or you really want to plug and play? Let's find the right site.
Well, I wouldn't rule it out, but considering you know, a built to suit typically, from what I understand, you know, in on a good day nowadays, it'll take you 18 months to build. It could take you 24 months to build. You're looking at a real timeline, and that's just from when you break ground on the project, let alone all the planning that comes ahead, which could be a good easy 6 months. So I'll say that I'd be open to it, but there would have to be a really big incentive, like almost like somehow, you know, where I'd be able to underwrite it, where I could say, okay, you're getting this at this really heavy discount, and the problem is, Sam, you're gonna have to wait a much longer time. So now that tells me I'm gonna have to invest a lot more money in the short term into more 3PL work, which is expensive. And if it was the right deal, it could work, but I would say, you know, building buildings nowadays. I mean, I heard the pricing has gone down a little bit. I don't know what the timeframes were. I'd have to understand what the time frame is. I would have to understand the costs. You know, it's an option, but it would have to make sense.
Yeah, the timeframes that I've experienced lately, heavy on the electrical. If there's some electrical needs, then getting the permitting and everything in place to do the electrical, nightmare. It could be at 2 years out. Some of the other permitting, steel and everything has kind of stabilized. We're actually working with a couple of steel projects, so they might, but if you are going to submit, really put together a case study and says, hey, if you were to build a suit, we work with these companies and this is the time frame. Is it 6 months? Is it 8 months? Is it 10 months? And what is the flexibility of those buildings that you can put together for Sam?
Yeah, Eric, to your point, if we were able to get in, if the project was, and you kind of reminded me of some conversation we had, you know, when I'm thinking build to suit, I'm thinking like this monstrous building is going to take a long time to build. If there was a way to somehow, like you said, phase 1 and phase 2 it, where either you could maybe build a small part of it and use that earlier, and then kind of, you know, build, let's say, 50 to 60,000 square foot, get that in. If that was to save on time, I don't know if that would save time frame. I'm not sure. But if there was a phase 1 and phase 2 where the earlier aspect of it just to get in would be, time frame would be cut down to, let's say, I don't know, 18 months or less, at 12 months, something like that, that would be appealing as well.
Yeah, I'm also thinking if there's an existing building that's maybe 50 to 100,000 square feet, or in that method, and it has the ability to build onto it. And I just toured a plant in Ballinger that does Miracle Grow, Buddy's Plants, and the exact same thing. They started off the small building, now it's massive, and so
that could work. That could work. Yeah, because then you could go live earlier, and then you could work on the construction during that time frame. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to circle back to Erica Gillum. She's with Hempstead, Texas, down near around the Port of Houston. And you brought up Port of Houston and some of the opportunities it brings, some of the challenges it can bring. If you could, I'm going to circle back to the map, maybe talk about not just Houston, but any of the things that you need to be presented down along this coast as it relates to the business.
Yeah.
What are the parameters that need to be really stressed to make that happen?
Well, I'll tell you the parameters that I would likely be looking at, and then I guess you know, some of that information I typically could get myself once I'm given some zip codes. But again, if somebody local has better data, you know, that's great. You know, the things I'm going to be looking at is, number one, not necessarily in this order, but the top few things would be transit time from China on the vessel. Okay, typically speaking, you know, we see out West Coast, we see not, you know, assuming no delays, you might see 16, 17 days, 18 days to arrive. You see East Coast and mostly closer to approaching high 20s to 30. You'd kind of want to be somewhere not worse than that, which I believe most ports are. So I would say 30 days or less on receiving from the Orient. You'd want to know that there aren't too many limitations, kind of like the question Eric asked earlier about smaller vessels. I don't know particularly. I couldn't tell you that there was specific gentleman that asked Eric about it, that theirs wasn't deep enough. I don't have that information, but I do know that we do need likely to have access for shipping to probably most of the general high volume larger vessels that do arrive, or else you start having scheduling issues and limitations as to which voyages can actually take your merchandise. So it would have to have a reasonable port that gets a decent amount of action, that has most of the ships, or a lot of the ships arriving to on a regular basis. It can't be like a small little port that you know only gets ocean freight containers very periodically. So it has to be a decent size over there. That would be on the receiving end. And now, if it gets into that port, we wouldn't want the location from the port to be much more. And I'm kind of stretching it, but 2 hours would be. 2 hours would be a stretch. We probably could deal with, but I probably wouldn't want to do it 4 hours away. Eric did mention earlier the idea of inland ports. I'm a little bit familiar with inland ports. I've never used one before. I do understand that they're decent for logistics, but there's also logistics issues with them. You know, they do cause additional delays, and sometimes it's not, you don't get your container the next day. I'm not going to say I wouldn't be open to that if I understood the logistics of the port, but the inland port would have to be a very good inland port for me to consider it, and I would have to be able to substantiate the actual net time frame of getting the goods not just to the port but to the warehouse. So that's kind of what it is with regards to inland ports, and that's kind of receiving.
Maybe in that case, also talk to a couple companies that use them and maybe get their feedback also to see real time what's happening with those.
Yeah, I would say those are the main things. I mean, geographically, in terms of outgoing shipping, anywhere on that map is very decent.
Yeah, as you said, everybody loves music.
Yeah.
So I got a question here from Larkin Simpson. He's from Madison, Mississippi. Congratulations, Larkin just landed $100 million project in the beverage space. And we're excited about that expansion or location for him. He's asking, with offices in China and products coming in from China, are there any hindrances to your operations from the Inflation Reduction Act? And if you're, that could be something. Any questions, just so you know, as guests and Sam, any questions that are asked that aren't, you will get those. We will put those in our updates on his project profile into the portal. So we'll add those as updates as we find the answers from Sam on those.
I typically, I'm not the type of guy who likes to talk about things that I don't understand well. Can you
run the company? You like the coffee. You don't need to know how it's made.
Listen, I have a CFO who probably could answer that question a little more intelligently. But I don't have a good answer to that question. I am going to look it up, and I'll happy to get back to him offline. You said if you could send me that question after, I will get you a proper response. I don't have a response offhand.
Okay. This might be more from an advantageous standpoint, Rick Clifton from Covington, Alabama, right down here is his little flag as one of our elite cities. He's saying that the Port of Mobile, Alabama, the Port of Panama City, Florida, are within 2 hours of their location. Would you utilize, I'm asking kind of a question for him, would you utilize one or two of those ports, or kind of see how they play into your, could they come into play for you?
Yes, they could. I have heard of the Port of Mobile, Alabama. I haven't been there yet. I have heard it's growing. I know it's not as large as Charleston, Savannah, and some of those. But yeah, I really would like more information as to the capabilities of the port, and if kind of making sure that there enough vessels are coming over there where it wouldn't be a hindrance to scheduling of the inventories that we need to get in. But Mobile, Alabama could definitely be an option.
Okay, Larkin's circling back. Larkin's right over here. He's one of our elite cities also. And he's just asking, is there any aversion to being located next to an Amazon DC, or is that a plus, or is that a minus?
It's a good question. Well, the thing about Amazon DCs is everybody hates working there, but they pay well. So, and they fire a lot of people also. So, do I have an aversion? I mean, you almost can't help it, because there's an Amazon DC almost everywhere.
Correct.
Everybody sees an Amazon DC. I mean, there's like how many, 4 or 5 of them in New Jersey. There's one of them actually not far from where I am in New York that hasn't opened up. I don't know if people know, but Amazon has had some cash problems recently. They modeled and over forecasted their growth, and have actually let go of over 30 million square feet of buildings. So I would say I don't think that would in and of itself would veer us off. I would really just have to see that if by being near the Amazon facility, it meant it would be impossible for me to get labor, that could cause an issue. But if I could get my own labor, I mean, I'm pretty confident that we're going to have a better culture, or at least a more our employees would be, we could keep our employees as happy as Amazon employees. So I'm not worried about our culture. It would be really more a matter of can we get the sufficient amount of employees into the building? Other than that, I don't care. Like, Amazon doesn't bother me as long as I could get my employees.
Yeah, and I actually toured that area with Larkin, and I saw the new Amazon, or the Amazon facility there, and they actually have some really good studies how exactly what you said. Is it a little bit of a fear of the workforce? How's it going to affect it? But they've got some studies back that really address that situation. We'll make sure that we get those to you. I got a question here from Connor Bradford from Baldwin County, Alabama. Just anything, is there any additional like special utility requirements, water, anything like that, or is pretty much just a normal operation for you?
Normal operation, standard electric. We don't need manufacturing level. We do need decent electric just to run charging stations for forklifts, electronic for conveyor belts and systems. Obviously, IT doesn't take a whole lot. So no, I would say standard distribution, obviously standard facilities, standard restrooms, lunchrooms, cafeterias, things of that sort. Nothing unique in that regard.
Okay. I want to be sensitive of the time. We promise our guests, we promise you to keep this to an hour. We're flying up on that hour really quick. So these last 3 questions, they're very important questions. So maybe if we can get them at least here, and if not, we're going to put them as an update. We'll get those from you after this. But in terms of the employees, what's kind of the estimated pay? Because I know that can be, labor rates compared to New York and some other areas might be pretty different.
We're gonna always be competitive in how we pay. Obviously, typically speaking, our model is let me just first say, depends on the job, right? So you're gonna have managers, you're gonna have supervisors, you're gonna have some more entry level workers who maybe start as, let's say, basic pick and pack. So it's gonna vary. In terms of cost of labor, we're gonna pay whatever the competitive rate is, to get the talent we're gonna pay. Obviously, if you're in a place that you need to pay $30 an hour to get a packer, well, that's not very good, because you're going to be at a competitive disadvantage. But if it's normal in the country to pay 18 or 19, and I got to pay 20 to get a better one, or 21, or I got to give a guy 40 grand and give him some benefits, or 50 grand, in those areas, yeah, I mean, we're gonna play ball over there. So it really depends on the job. But I think what's really important about our company culture is it doesn't matter if you're working in the office, if you're a finance guy, a marketing guy, an engineer, a director. We do biannual reviews. We give bonuses. We give raises, and good people get rewarded. So if you're the cream of the crop, even if you came in on an entry level job, you're eventually going to have a good job for a very good company. And we have, we have people in our warehouse who started off as very entry level pickers, who are now making, very, very nice livings, and have kind of grown into managers.
Okay, perfect. 8 and 9, that can kind of be combined. In terms of a must-have, if you had 2 must-haves that the facility has to do, so if they don't have that, they're off the list. Is there any must-haves, and is there any tipping points in your mind that you've said, you know what, this is really what's going to drive me to look at one location over another?
Well, everything is kind of weighted on a scale, I guess, if you will. Cost of the building, sure. Like, if we're able to get away with paying less per square foot on the purchase price, or less per, that's going to be a big plus for us. Because again, our business model works at the end of the day by being an efficient company who makes sure that we keep our overhead reasonable. So that's going to matter. A place that we could that has better receiving at the port, that has better ports, that's going to matter. Better ports means that there's less limitations with regards to when we book containers. Like, we could have sometimes 3, 4, 5 containers on one vessel. We've had over 10 at times. And a vessel is the big boat that comes with, like, sometimes thousands of containers from China. And if one location might limit some of it, then it might be harder for us to do our bookings in China, and that might delay the incoming of the goods. So that would kind of be a so to speak, part of the weighted thing. And then, of course, at the end of the day, one of the things we do like to do is we like to check up, and from a parcel perspective, we like to look at the map and see, what percentage of the population of the country can we get goods to within, let's say, 2 days, or at least 2 to 3, but 2 days is really the magic number. And any places that have a higher percentage, and it's not based off what state, how many states you could hit, it's based off following the population, because some states might be 1% or less than 1% of the population, and some states might be 2, 3, even up to 10% or 12% in the larger ones. So you have to kind of look at the map in that regard, because that's really what matters when it comes to the logistics.
Perfect. And we always stress that. So if you were to re-listen to this Prospect Live whenever you're preparing your submission, we always stress the cover letter is probably the most important thing of getting you past capturing your interest to dig deeper and look at the city. Fast forward right to those 3 points and really address those points and say, hey, our area is perfect because, and make sure that your area aligns with those must-haves and those tipping points if you really want to be in serious consideration, because that's really what we're trying to find for Sam is the best options for him to consider. And because of the short time frame, we need you as the cities to be the salespeople and present the case of why Sam should be considered in your location. That really ties into the incentive. So I can think of inventory costs. Have you ever used a free trade zone or a foreign trade zone, or taken the advantage of those, Sam? And would those apply to your company?
Yes, they will apply. No, we have not used it in the past.
Okay, so quick education on that might even be a small tipping point if it can help in terms of his business. And I guess in relating to that, because I've worked on several projects, how quick do you turn your inventory? Is it less than 90 days or do you store it for more than 90?
I would say actually 90 is the approximate, is really the approximate average
Okay,
as to what we kind of store. It's somewhere there,
Okay.
depends on the SKU, depends on what it is, but 90 days would be the approximate average.
okay. In some states, if you can push that out at 89 days or move it, there are some tax advantages and things that they can pass along to you. So something to really maybe dive in and get some numbers. I don't have any more questions for you. I don't see any of our guests have any other questions. I got one from Beverly over here in the chat section. Beverly, she's with Harlingen, and excited to have you here. Would you consider a long-term lease if purchasing is not an option? I can probably answer that for you based on our conversations. If there was a long-term lease lease to purchase option, that could be advantageous. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. I got one other question just flew in. If we are centrally located but not as near a dry port, would you still consider us? So I guess that's more of a inland location off of a port. And I guess that's gonna, well, I'll just leave you to answer that.
Yeah, I would consider it, but it's definitely I definitely have to say for us, it's a disadvantage typically, unless you have some sort of inland port that's proven to be phenomenal, where you can almost compete with the regular ports. I should say the larger actual ocean ports, both in delivery time and delivery costs, which is not an easy thing to do. I'm not saying it's impossible. It is possible, because what sometimes they do is they receive them from California and then they put them on a rail, which then could bring it into an inland port. The problem is when you have times of congestion during holiday season, it never really works well. When it's not holiday season, maybe it will work. During COVID times, anyone who dealt with that got really messed up. But again, COVID time, I don't know. Is it once in a lifetime? Maybe, but who knows? Who knows the future? So I would say it's less advantageous. I would consider it if somebody was able to show me a clear, so to speak, logistics approach into, hey, this is how you're going to get your goods. These are the goods that could arrive. We don't have limitations. This is the time frame of how long it would take to get into X warehouse via this delivery method. I would have to understand that. And if it ended up being an extra 10 or 15 days or something of that sort, or became significantly more expensive, it would probably rule it out. But if it somehow was able to be reasonably competitive, then we would at least consider it.
And guys, I would say, don't you present that? Present a case study. Show someone that's done that is in the same scenario as Sam, and say, hey, this company was in your exact same scenario. They moved to this inland port, and here's what they found and experienced, and show some real life numbers that can actually mean something. So awesome. Let's get to this. Ashley, if you can go over the submission deadlines.
Yeah, Amazing job, Sam. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Now it's time to get you some submissions. So all of them are going to be due by May 25th at 5 p.m. So I'll collect all of those submissions. I will compile them, organize them, and turn them over to Sam so that he can review and hopefully create a short list with one of our members on it. And the recording and instructions for the submission will come from Eric's email. So make sure to check that if you don't already know how to submit, but definitely try to get your submissions in as soon as possible so that we can start looking through them. And we're excited to see what you guys have to offer him.
Yeah, Connor, we answered that question. I'll get back to you and send you an email on the Greenfield site. Chad just flew in a question. Got to answer Chad's. They're from Imperial Valley, great elite city of ours. And he was asking where your locations in California are. If you don't want to share it on here, I'll give them to him personally per your permission.
Inland Empire, Halupa Valley.
The hottest areas.
Top by Ashley. So,
Yeah.
all right, guys, that is it. We are 11 minutes over, and I do respect your time. Remember, these are our two community assessment directors. Reach out to them if you need help on your submission. If you have any additional questions, they are dynamic. They're wonderful. They're a very valuable part of our team in making the submissions come in, getting them to Ashley and ultimately to Sam. So use our whole team. We're here to help serve Sam and you, the communities. So with that said, I've enjoyed working with you, Sam. Thank you so much for all the time that you've given us. We're trying to cut down on the amount of time since you're on such a time frame. We hope we're doing that for you. And thank you, communities, for coming on and spending time. We know you're running your cities, and to spend an hour of your time during your busy days is very important to us. And we hope we provided some valuable information. We're excited about this project. We hope you are too. So until next time, for our next Prospect Live, we'll say goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.